Climate change is one of the most daunting challenges to humanity that require regional and global actions to sustain national initiatives in our respective countries. Climate change impact on the sustainable development of the water and water-dependent resources indeed needs to be comprehensively devised and well understood for appropriate scenarios and implementable actions to be undertaken. The Nile Basin Development Forum is a momentous framework that has been set up by the Nile Basin Initiative, convening every 2 years since 2006 to fulfill such a goal. The purpose of the forum is to foster Nile Basin emergence of knowledge communities and exchange of experience, as well as to enhance the understanding between diverse categories of stakeholders on the Nile Basin issues and challenges. The third Nile Basin Development Forum was organized under the theme Climate Change and its Implications for Sustainable Development and Cooperation in the Nile Basin, Threats and Opportunities for the Nile Basin Cooperation. The theme was in realization of the fact that climate change is a reality and it is predicted to have strong impacts on the Nile Basin. Previous studies indicate that climate change will have considerable negative impacts on the quantity and quality of the Nile waters and related natural resources. As a consequence, human livelihoods and development in the riparian countries could be adversely affected. The forum was attended by more than 200 participants from within and outside the Nile Basin countries, including ministers in charge of water affairs, members of parliament, environmentalists, water managers, researchers, river basin organizations, international and regional organizations, civil society, private sector, media, diplomatic missions, and development partners. The third forum was held in Kigali, Rwanda from the 26th to 28th October 2011. It was organized in collaboration with the Ministry of Natural Resources of Rwanda. The forum was officially opened by the President of the Senate of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Jean Damascene Ntawukuriryayo. He had this to say.
In this region, there are many initiatives everyone is aware of, which are engaged in climate change matters. Those include East African Community through the Lake Victoria Basin Commission, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, and the United Nations Environment Program, among others. There is, of course, a need for synergic interventions that optimize and ensure beneficial use of the valuable resources.
His Excellency Ntawukuriryayo gave assurance of Rwanda's commitment and support to the Nile cooperation.
I promise on behalf of His Excellency the President of Rwanda and the people of Rwanda this commitment to continue as we collaborate with all stakeholders involved in climate change issues and other development programs in Africa.
Honorable Charity Kaluki Ngilu, Kenya's Minister for Water and Irrigation, and chairperson of the Nile Council of Ministers in charge of water affairs, expressed concern that the Nile Basin region is faced with a declining level of Lake Victoria.
For us to guarantee water security for our citizens, I would encourage, therefore, those member states that have not signed to do so. In this regard, it is important to reiterate the following. 1, water security for Sudan and Egypt is not a matter for debate. It is a right. To secure this right, it is important that CFA is ratified by all the Nile Basin states.
Executive Director of the Nile Basin Initiative called for togetherness, joint regional action, as well as explicit political will and financial commitment from all Nile's riparian states and development partners in order to achieve sustainable socio-economic development and management of the Nile Basin.
The Nile Basin can be resilient to climate change if and only if our riparian states work together as one body.
The forum hosted 3 parallel working groups focusing on critical areas of NBI efforts that enabled participants to have an in-depth interactive discussion. The parallel sections focused on food and energy, governance, as well as finance. The working group on food and energy discussed challenges and opportunities for food and energy security under a changing climate in the Nile Basin, as well as the role of virtual water trade in agriculture and food security. The one on governance discussed potentials of integrated water resources planning for adaptation and enabling cooperation in adaptive water resource management. The group on finance focused on adaptation financing mechanism as well as developing financing strategies for climate adaptation in the water. Participants were treated to an exhibition showcasing the work of NBI and other stakeholders. The third Nile Basin Development Forum was officially closed on 28 October 2011 by the host, Honorable Ambassador Stanislas Kamanzi, Minister of Natural Resources of the Republic of Rwanda. He noted that participants have ably deliberated on the challenges, existing opportunities, and the ever-growing threats of climate change development agendas, not only in NBI, but in the whole of Africa.
We received captivating keynote speeches and then went on to deliberate on core issues and what can be done in governance, finance, food, and energy security in enabling us adapt to climate change.
During the forum, the Nile Basin Initiative launched some of its key products relevant to the subject of climate change. These include the Nile Decision Support System, Nile DSS, a world-class analytical tool for NBI member states and NBI as an institution that supports rational decisions and promotes sustainable outcomes. The first ever River Nile State of Basin report, which provides access to accurate, credible, and timely information to help in raising awareness and increasing understanding and appreciation about the natural environment, the people, communities, and economic development of the basin. The Nile Basin Sustainability Framework, a suite of policies, strategies and guidelines through which the NBI will ensure that its activities are sustainable. The Nile Information System, Nile IS, as a web-based knowledge management tool that allows for easy storage, searching, organizing, retrieval, analyzing, as well as disseminating and exchanging information collected from NBI programs and projects. Food and Agriculture Organization, Nile Information Products, a policy-neutral instrument for examining a linked future between the land and water in the Nile Basin and exploring the issues related to the people that depend on the continued access to land and cycle of nutrients and water. At the end of the forum, participants from the Nile Basin countries, namely Burundi, Democratic Republic of Congo, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, the Sudan, Tanzania and Uganda issued a Kigali Declaration in which they called for cooperation among the respective countries in preserving and managing the Nile Basin environment. They highlighted the need to support the empowerment of the Nile Basin Initiative to take more rigorous and effective steps towards implementing pertinent climate change adaptation measures, strengthening participatory and integrated approaches in planning and decision-making, including meaningful participation of civil society and non-governmental organizations. The third Nile Basin Development Forum provided an opportunity to stakeholders to deliberate on the challenges, existing opportunities, ever-growing threats of climate change to development agendas, not only in NBI, but in the whole of Africa. They took note of the significant progress made cooperatively among the Nile riparian states under the Nile Basin Initiative to put in place the necessary tools, system, and capacities for sustainable management and development. Participants also took note of the progress made in implementation of development programs that improve resilience to climate change.
Mutima,